Hey, what's up? This is Erik Garcia, one of the hosts of the Building Us podcast. Matt and I every week say invest in your relationships. Moms are the foundation and the cornerstone of our relationships. So what better way to invest in our relationships than to honor moms, not just during Mother's Day weekend, but just in general. So we have partnered with our friends at New Orleans Mom to bring you this tribute to moms. Moms are underpaid. This is all about recognizing the sacrifices that moms make, especially over the past year during COVID. COVID has disproportionately impacted moms more so than dads, and we just wanted to recognize that, elevate moms, recognize them for their sacrifice. Now, this podcast is not just for moms. In fact, we encourage you, listen to this with your husbands, listen to this with your partners, listen to this with your kids. We want to honor you, moms, and not just honor you, but help you build your families, because we know how important family is to you. And we're so pleased to have partnered here with New Orleans Mom to bring you this show. Now, a couple of things. Number one, moms, you have a chance to win a staycation here in New Orleans, so a one-night stay at either Higgins Hotel or Southern Hotel. There's some extra cash in there for drinks, so it's a nice night away from maybe some of the responsibilities that have been so overwhelming for you. So we thank our partners for that. This is rainy season in New Orleans, so we had to power through some connectivity issues, some technical issues, but I think we worked through it just fine. We hope you enjoy this episode. Happy Mother's Day to the moms. We love you. We appreciate you, and thank you for building our families and investing in our relationships. Y'all enjoy. This is the Building Us podcast. Financial planner and financial advisor. One of your co-hosts, Matt. Dr. Matt is the other typical regular co-host. We have other two co-hosts here with us, Seleigh and Joey. We're going to introduce them here in a second. Matt, it is Mother's Day weekend, and
Yes.
moms are rock stars
Yes.
and bosses.
Yes.
Every year I do a tribute to moms. It's called I Can't Afford My Wife. The idea is if I had to pay my wife for everything that she does for the family, I would be broke. No money in the bank account. And for a financial advisor to be broke, that's kind of embarrassing, right? So this year, we decided to partner with our friends over at New Orleans Mom. We figured what better way to honor and pay tribute to moms that are underpaid than to partner with New Orleans Mom. So we have two awesome co-hosts here with us today to help us pay tribute to moms.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation, but I know it's going to go a lot of different places. But you know, you've done this for a couple of years. I joined you last year, and this year we have two ladies, two moms joining us to add their voice. And this is in partnership with New Orleans Mom blog, a media company that curates tons of really cool content. So if you're looking for something to read or avail yourself of, check out NewOrleansMom.com.
Yeah, and NewOrleansMom.com. Also, if you are listening, you're going to have the opportunity to win one of two staycations here in New Orleans. What better way, moms, than to get away for a night away from kids and maybe husband? So it's
Yeah.
husband's
Ditch
husband.
ditch your family and go stay by yourself at the hotel.
Ditch
That'd
your
be
family. Each of these
great.
come with enough, what it looks to me, enough extra cash to maybe get a drink. So listen in. We're going to tell you how you can register to win. But let's go ahead and meet our our co-host for today. Joey, why don't you go first?
Hi, I'm Joey Yearous. I'm a writer with New Orleans Mom. I started writing with them about a year ago, right before COVID changed the world. I am born and raised in New Orleans. I made the big jump to the North Shore almost 2 years ago, right before my husband and I had our first baby. And then we quickly had a second baby, so I'm a two under two mom. I have a almost 2-year-old son and a 7-week-old daughter. So really just in a whirlwind these days. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to do something that isn't wiping noses.
Ooh,
At least
my
for an
youngest is
hour.
7. My
Yeah,
youngest
for
is
an
7. I'm
hour.
glad I don't have I'm glad I don't have a 2-year-old or a 7-month-old.
7-week-old.
Seleigh, a
7-week
week-old.
old. A little baby.
7 week.
Little
7
bitty
week. Yeah,
baby.
little bitty. All they do is poop, sleep, and cry. It's easy.
Yeah.
Gets hard when they get to 17. Seleigh.
Hi, I am Solaya Taylor. I am also a native of New Orleans. I am a writer for New Orleans Mom Blog, same as Joey. I've been there about a year, super excited, and I am a mother of 2 daughters. One is 9, one is 4.5. You cannot leave off the half. And I've been married for 13 years, so it's super exciting to have this chat with you guys today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. 13 years marriage. Joey, you said how many years?
Just over 3.
3. And Matt, where are you at?
Man, I'm over 2 decades.
Over 2 decades? I'm almost to 2 decades. So you're the sage on this call.
The elder statesman of the group.
I'm the newbie.
Yeah. Matt, go ahead, introduce yourself and kick us off.
Thanks, man. I, as always, your co-host, Dr. Matt Morris, couples counselor and family therapist in New Orleans. And for those in this audience that aren't our typical audience and aren't familiar with our show, Building Us, we host a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that deals with relationships, home life, money, and everything in between. We've been doing a lot of different kind of episodes. We just finished up a series called Simple, where we provided our listeners with everyday tactical and tactical strategies for investing in your relationship and making your life a little bit better at home. But today we're doing a different thing, which is having this really interesting conversation with moms about the value of moms and the value that moms bring to the home and how much we appreciate that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you and I have had this conversation before. In fact, we recorded an episode like this a year ago, and I think we can post that video or link to that video in these show notes. But I just ran across somebody who just watched that or just heard that, and they said, it was a woman, and she said, "Ooh, whatever you said your wife is worth, whatever the value was in that." It was like I can't remember exactly, but 180,000.
3,000, I think it was.
173,000 is what it would cost to like pay for all those services. Anyway, this woman who had just listened to the episode said, "I bet a man came up with that figure because it's low, it's light."
Seleigh, if your husband walked in and wrote you a check for $173,000 right now, would you be upset?
A year, per year.
A year.
No, I don't think I would be sad.
You'd say, "Come on, man, come on."
Like, thank you.
So we've had this conversation about just the value that moms bring to the home, and what we were talking about in that case was all the services that moms do for the household that if we had to pay for, what all that would cost. And I'm just thinking about my own wife and all that she does. And I mean, she cooked dinner tonight, so somebody to cook. Somebody went and bought those groceries. It wasn't me this week. She went to work herself. She probably picked up a kid or two along the way. Laundry, I bet, has been done recently. There's just a lot that moms do. And so there's some research around this topic, around the value of women in the home and mothers in the home. But some of the research this year has been a little bit different. There's always these annual surveys around the home and life in the home and what life is like for the participants. But this year, the surveys were a little bit different because they included data about the pandemic and how the pandemic, our response to COVID-19 really changed our life. You and I have alluded to some of these surveys and other conversations. But in some of the research around the pandemic, it really focused on how the work-life balance changed and how the division of labor changed over the last year. And so, I mean, I can speak to that anecdotally, that I just know in my own family, we all spent a lot more time together at home, which was great, but it also meant a lot more laundry, a lot more dishes, a lot more just crap and clutter sitting around that had to be picked up. Somebody's got to do that. And so surveys have been done asking moms and dads how the life has been different over the last year. And so you guys can probably imagine that when moms and dads are asked about the work-life balance, oftentimes moms are saying it's harder for them to find whatever that sense of balance might be. When it comes to like division of labor, moms are often saying, I feel like my job responsibility list is longer than anybody else in the household. When it comes to like childcare, taking care of the kids, more duties fall to the mom, it seems like, year after year. At least that's the perception of most people. And so we just want to honor that and talk about that and talk about how stressful that is for moms, but also, can we do something better? Can we do something different? So I really do want to get into that conversation, but I want to get you guys started in this conversation. How did life, as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, how did life change in the last year, just, professionally for you?
Seleigh, you can go first.
I was gonna say I'll jump in. I'm a school administrator, so choosing to, well, not choosing, being forced to work from home, but also run a school from your home is quite the challenge. And in doing so with two little ones at home was very, very interesting, and then a little different for us because my husband's job never stopped during COVID. It actually got busier. So not only doing that, but doing it without help because my husband literally had no options. That it was a lot. It was very, very interesting times. Like lots of laundry, lots of dishes,
Yeah.
lots of balancing, and honestly, a lot of late night working because a lot of my work didn't get done until my husband came home and could take over or my kids were sleeping. So not only did the work day never end because it went from work to kids, it never ended because a lot of my actual work was done at 9 and 10 o'clock at night during COVID. So it was a little rough.
A school administrator running a school from home, that's like a definition of homeschooling that I haven't heard of yet.
It's a little bit different,
Yeah.
while also schooling my children. Thankfully, the little one was in pre-K 3, so there was very little organized schooling. But for my older daughter, who was in second grade, it was a little crazier.
Man, moms are rock stars, that's for sure. And something that you said there was that for you, not being able to go to the school, to the office, meant that you never left work, really. I mean, you never left home, and therefore you never left work. And work shifted to a different time period of the day when normally you would be resting or relaxing or catching up on other things at home. You were now doing part of your school administration job.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
man, what a change. Joey, what about you? How's life different over the last year?
Very different. I was a COVID layoff over the summer. So my job of 10 years just kind of abruptly ended in June. We also had kind of a different situation because I had worked remotely prior to COVID. And so the change for me was more that I wasn't sending my son to daycare anymore, and my husband, who is a high school special ed teacher, was working from home. So at the time, my son was about 7 months old, and so I actually wrote a post for New Orleans Mom about my experience. I think it may have been my very first post. It was a letter to my infant during the corona apocalypse, because I had a very different view of things than like Solaya did. I didn't have balance. I was, especially after I got laid off, I got to be there for my son's first time he sat up, when he crawled, when he walked. different situation for me. I was very grateful to have that time. I didn't have to, juggle school and all of that. But I did notice a different dynamic in the household with my husband being there more. Things that I was able to get done around the house in a different way. Working remotely was a lot harder when there's a baby there and a husband there. So it was a very different thing to be kind of thrust into the stay-at-home mom life the last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
you
when
went
people are
from
around,
working from home mom to uh, stay-at-home mom without choosing that.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
It's
That's
been a
a
blessing in a lot of ways, but it's also been really hard because I guess I would have thought, like, oh, I'd love to stay home. But it is hard, and it is a lot harder than I ever thought, especially now that I've got two under two. Um, I would love to not be home sometimes. Like, uh, yeah,
you
Can,
deserve a $173,000 paycheck, Joey.
I
can she
agree.
can she register for the staycation even as a panelist?
So
Uh,
I mean, sure.
yeah.
So on that, I'm going to put up on the screen here information on how you can register for the staycation. So if you go to the neworleansmom.com website, you'll see there will be a link to where you can register. You put your name and your email, and we're going to run this through May 17th. So there is plenty of time to get your name in there through May 17th. Share it with all your friends. Anyone can. Well, mom, you need to be a mom to register. Matt, you can't register, but
That's okay.
register to do that.
So we've been talking just a little bit about how life changed tremendously for a lot of families, particularly moms, uh, over the last year, and we came up with the idea to just ask some of the New Orleans Mom blog writers some questions about how life has changed. Talking about some of those, one of the things that I was interested in with moms, and kind of going back, Eric, to this idea that if we had to pay for all the services, we couldn't pay enough. And so the value of moms is really important to me, the value of the women in our homes. And so kind of wondering about how moms may have been feeling undervalued in the home in the last year. Um, I'm assuming that moms may have always felt undervalued to some extent, but over the last year, with things changing the way that they did so dramatically, like Solea's story about having an office to go to and then not, and trying to lead a school while also teach her own kids, or make sure her own kids were learning something, and not getting a lot of help. Yeah, I can imagine that there was an increased level in feeling undervalued. So, Seleigh, describe this to us. What did we do with these questions, and what kind of information did we come up with?
Sure. So we kind of pulled our writers to still find out how they were feeling. Not quite post-corona because we're still kind of there. But we asked about 4 questions. So one was, in the past, what tasks have led you to feel particularly undervalued in the home? Was one of the first questions. We got a variety of them, mostly dealing with housework and keeping the house tidy, because, of course, sometimes one person may have a different feeling how or what tidiness is in another in the home. So sometimes that's a bit of a struggle. Another question was, it was kind of a fun one. What routine, task, or chore would you love to hire someone to do for you? Cooking, I think, may have been cooking and meal prepping has been.
Was it cooking? I thought laundry kind of
You,
rose to the
you think
top.
laundry? I know
Yeah.
laundry might be number 1. Well, I'll give you that.
Laundry
Laundry
was
was
my
number
number
1.
one.
So on this call, Matt, I know you and I are not moms, but if you had to hire someone to cook or do laundry, what would you do?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I don't know if you
can
do laundry now.
I have a
I do
third.
very
I
little
have a
laundry at my
third.
house.
A third option for me would be a driver. I'd love a driver. But out of the two options you gave me, laundry for sure. I do, and
Yeah.
we just did a simple episode on cooking a meal, and you and I both love to cook meals for other people. Don't enjoy doing laundry that much. There's not as much gratification as I get out of laundry than I
Why
do
did
from
it's
cooking.
it's a grind. It's so daily. Like you could skip a meal and be okay, but you gotta wash your clothes, right?
Yeah.
We've discovered something in our home that once in a while we'll do laundry and like fold it, and our kids won't put it away and they'll leave it in the hamper, and then we end up washing clean clothes.
So inefficient.
That may that
So
makes you want
inefficient.
to like have a family meeting.
So okay, so okay, that's a good scenario. So Joey Seleigh, here's the scenario: you do laundry, you fold it, you put it, in the hamper, or you put it somewhere for the kids to put it away, or your husband, okay? And they don't, and you have to rewash it. How do you feel? I think we have Soleigh's got a bad connection. So Joey, how do you feel if that happens?
Um, well, my kids are too little to put laundry away. So if it's not me, it's him. And I don't think that we've had to we're pretty good about folding it. So it'll be folded in the laundry basket. So if it's not put away right away, it usually doesn't get washed again because it's folded. So we know like it's still clean, but it'll sit there probably 2 or 3 days before we put it away because I buy more laundry baskets. I think we've got four circulating our 2-story home. It's probably more laundry baskets than a family needs, but I've got laundry baskets constantly just being cycled through. So hopefully somebody is putting it away. But yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna get more into routines and tasks. I'll jump in here. I think Seleigh froze here. Hopefully we'll get her back in a second. But the third question that y'all asked, Joey, I don't know if you have it pulled up on your screen, so I'll just go ahead and read it here. Is what new habits or routines from the past year will you and your family continue into the new normal? We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll see if Seleigh can jump back in. I think she'll probably log back in here, and we'll include her back into the conversation. So let's just keep rolling here. I'm sure she'll get back in. This is technology in New Orleans during the rainy season.
Yeah.
So, the last question was about chasing that elusive balancing act of work life, home self, and how do you return to balance. So let's kind of what are some things that stood out to y'all? I know we chatted kind of in preparing for this. I'm curious to hear, and let's just have conversations about maybe some of those things that stood out.
For the third question or just overall?
Overall, I think there's a lot of bleed over in all the questions. So let's just kind of kick them around.
I think probably a lot of it is it looks like I know for me personally, I have help. I have, my husband is very helpful. And I still feel like it's not all getting done. And I feel like we haven't necessarily perfected our balance. That was kind of one of the things too when we asked the question about balance. It was almost laughable. Like, does that even exist? Like, how do you get there?
Yeah, that was a lot of. So does it exist?
I haven't found it.
I think that people and families have found moments of balance from day to day or week to week, but not more than that, not more than that. And in this COVID year, when things change so quickly, it both threw people's routines out of balance and gave people a chance to form new routines that might include more balance. And so I have heard lots of people over the last year say that there have been parts of this that have been nice because I have had moments to focus a little bit more on myself or focus a little bit more on my self-care, but it's just been different. And so I think that striving for moments of balance is about as good as we can do most of the time, and that's okay.
Seleigh,
I
what do you
like
think
that.
about balance?
I was literally gonna say what Matt said, where like we'll have moments of like these great grooves or like things are going the way it needs to go and everyone feels happy and satisfied and self care is there, and then there are moments when things are definitely unbalanced, whatever. I know for us even like seasonal, like certain things when work is busier for one of us, it's not always balanced. Or we've had to find a new balance because one person has to take over more things than the other than they usually would because someone's job is a little more difficult at certain times of the year. Like August, I'm no good. Beginning of the school year, I work very late. My husband definitely picks up the slack. He even takes a vacation week just to support the fact that I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be that busy. Um, Grooves, and having to remember that, remembering those grooves and remembering, yeah, okay, this is a season, this is temporary. I think that sometimes helps.
Yeah, one of the responses we got, she said, "Is there a perfect balance?" Question mark, and she kind of went on to some other stuff. And she said, "We tell ourselves there's a balance, but I think it's just giving ourselves grace and knowing that on the days you kill it at one job, you're likely not rocking in the others." And I think that idea of grace, I think, for me, when kind of having a conversation with my wife and I can tell that she's overwhelmed or frustrated, it's like maybe this we don't worry about this right now. Maybe laundry's not going to get done today, or maybe we're not going to be able to clean the house today, or maybe this isn't going to happen, and we'll just kind of let's not worry about. And maybe it's easier said than done, coming from the man here, the husband, saying it because y'all are constantly thinking of all the details, and especially my wife, who's very, I mean, she is gifted in administration. Like she can know everything that needs to get done when it needs to get done, and when it doesn't get done, it frustrates her and overwhelmed. And I'm like, we'll get to that later. So it's maybe finding that grace. I love how she said it, just giving ourselves grace.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I also think, kind of going back to this, like there are moments or seasons of balance that with child development the way it is, having a 2-year-old is very different than having a 12-year-old. And the kind of care activities that it requires to take care of a 2-year-old are different than it does for taking care of a 12-year-old. And so just remembering that as your kids are developing, which can happen in very short spurts, particularly for young kids, that life is going to change whether you want it to or not every 6 months or so. And so you're always having to find new kinds of balance, even with like school year, school changes. And once kids reach, elementary school level, maybe the change isn't quite so drastic, but it changes because every classroom's different, every teacher's different, every cohort of students is different. And so there are different challenges with each 6-month, year, season of life. And so just being aware that child development, educational development, family development are like a tide that none of us escape, and so it's always pulling us along and requiring us that we adjust and find new balance. And if the best we can do in that is accept it and find moments and be graceful with ourselves for the rest, that's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I'm curious. Talk us through, and maybe Joey and Seleigh can add here from their perspective, but the challenge of when we build routines. Husbands build routines, kids build routines, wives build routines, and then something changes in someone's routine. So mom's routine changes, but kids and dad might not change or might not recognize that change. So mom just might, and we saw this in a lot of the responses. I'm just going to shoulder this. I'm responsible. I know it needs to get done, so I'm just going to do it. And it almost seems like it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and just the sense of overwhelmment just increases. So when balance changes and those hard conversations have to happen, like how do you do that? So give us the magic bullet.
Well, and I can't wait to hear from Seleigh and Joey on this also, but my advice would just be that recognizing that change is inevitable and that flexibility is required are so important. So let me say it this way, Eric. Families can develop problems by not having enough routine, but families can also develop problems by trying to hold on to a routine that no longer fits. So if you don't have enough structure in the home, that can create certain problems. But if you get too rigidly attached to your last year's structure, when a new structure is required, that also causes problems. So like you've heard me say it before, I think families need to have, a meeting every 3 months or 6 months and just say, what are the new challenges? What are the new routines? What are the new hopes and dreams and expectations? What are we wanting to accomplish? What are we struggling with? And let's game plan around those things every 6 months, because life requires that we be flexible. Once you get stuck, problems develop. Joey?
You're kind of
Yeah.
nodding,
Well,
and I hear an amen with.
y- absolutely. I think just so in the last 7 weeks, we brought a new baby home,
Yeah.
and trying to break that news to the toddler that she's snaking around. He's been wonderful adjusting to her. He adores her. He wants to touch her and kiss her constantly. So I'm very excited about that. But it's a lot because we had kind of just gotten into a routine, me with him during the day. And all of a sudden, like we don't get to sit and read 4 books. We, get interrupted halfway through the first one because somebody else needs me too. And so I worked really hard. I'm very type A. I like lists, I like routines. And so I worked really hard to get a routine together with my toddler. And now I'm, you know, kind of making it with the newborn, but she's probably a little bossier than I am right now, so things are interesting there. But
Matt says this
everything's always
often.
in flux. It's a season. I just keep telling myself that.
Yeah, yeah. Matt says this often, that kids are terrible roommates.
They
Yeah,
are.
they are.
Terrible roommates. And
I
I want to make a
agree.
point. I just want to stop here and make a point that one of the goals that I have, and I hope that it comes through in this recording here, this episode, is it's not just a place where we asked a bunch of moms and they complained with their answers, and that's not what it is. What we're hoping here is that, there's some really important things that I think are said in here that are really important for relationships. They're important for marriages. They're important for the parent relationship, and I'm just hoping that our conversation here um, doesn't just empower moms, but that moms are able to be heard, and that the hearers, not me and Matt, or not other moms. Y'all don't need other moms to hear you. You need husbands and kids and your support system to hear you. That's my goal here, is that we're hoping that we can give voice um, to that.
We had some discussion around how to have those conversations with your loved ones, with your spouse, with your family. So let's dig into that a little bit. How do you, uh, Solaya and Joey, when you are when you're needing something different from your spouse, how do you bring that up? And how does that conversation go?
The good way of bringing it up or like the bad way of bringing it up?
Exactly.
We want the bad. Come on, that's more
Yeah.
exciting.
That moment when you're juggling
But
everything and
like,
it's like, yeah.
yeah, when like it bursts, like like the correct way you should talk to someone when you need help. No, really, I think for sure. I think one of the biggest things I've heard and we've talked about a lot is like that asking for help. That sometimes as a mom we hold such ourselves to such high standards that we feel like we failed when we need help. But at the same, and if it's not that side, then sometimes it's, you should know I need help. So then there's like the animosity building. So I think sometimes we have like those struggles. So finding that way of saying, hey, this is what's going on. Like you said, this routine is different. This need has changed. I need this task to be switched. I need you to take over this task. Or, hey, this is frustrating me. Can we find a new way of doing this? Because I don't want to feel frustrated, or I don't want everyone yelling in the morning as we're trying to get out the door. Of like, sometimes just having that open conversation of like, what do you think helps? Or saying, I'm thinking these will be helpful, but I don't know what else could we do so that we're not at whatever point every day, whether it's everyone yelling and everyone late, or just mom feeling very frustrated and defeated as they, walk out the door every morning. What helps? And like saying that to your spouse, like, this is how I'm feeling. What can we do different? Or this is what I need to change. Sometimes like that. Like, for example, because of COVID, my kids don't eat breakfast at school anymore. That used to be a thing. Like, I didn't have to think about breakfast. I can get this handy little card. They can buy breakfast at school, pick what they want. It was great. That program doesn't exist anymore because of COVID, because there's no morning care. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have to pick another meal, I'm going to like go crazy. So one of the things I had was like, hey, look, I can't do breakfast anymore. Like, I can buy lots of options, but like, I can't be the one responsible for the meals. Let's try to get a protein most days of the week. Otherwise, like, go for it, whatever you can do. And like, it was great. My husband, he handles it. Some days it's questionable, most days it's fine, but like, I know I don't have to do that. So just that relief makes our mornings that much easier. Or like, I'm not dreading thinking about that in the morning. Oh great, I have to still get them a breakfast. I know it's handled. And like, that small thing really has a huge impact. Sometimes it's a very small change that really makes you feel a lot better about what's going on.
So, like, in part of your answer, you have to speak up eventually. You have to say, I got this need. And you can do that in a way that works better, or you can do that in a way that doesn't work as well.
So I had this conversation with my wife because I'm kind of talking about this episode that we're going to do, and it's funny. One of the things she told me, and I took it personally, and it was kind of like, don't take it personally. Like, if you ask me a question or ask for help, or if I say I need something, you tend to take it personally, because like, I think I'm pretty helpful most of the time, and then like, you tell me to do something and I'm like, you just don't recognize how helpful I'm being over here. And she's like, you need to be ready. This is what she said. You need to be ready for the response and don't take it personally. And I was like, oh man, I took it personally, but I got over it. But it's the help. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's trying to help you in the way that's most helpful to them, but it's not helpful to you?
100%.
And you feel bad because it's like, oh, they're helping me, but it's making it even harder. I think that's kind of that sentiment. It's like, you kind of saw that coming through some of these responses. Like, your help is not helpful, so I'm just going to do it because you're not.
You don't want
willing
to feel
listen.
ungrateful.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want to feel like you're ungrateful that someone's trying. Like, that definitely happens a lot. Like, my husband knows I like the kitchen clean, and he does. He does dishes. I do not do dishes. I'm very, very, very grateful for that. But some days I need him to just take over a bedtime routine because I've like just had it and I'm exhausted, or the kids are very cranky that day. And he's like, but I'm cleaning these dishes that you really like to have clean. And it is. That's still something that makes me happy. But in this moment today, my need is a little different. In this moment, I feel like I'm going to scream, or I don't want to scream. Like, I try my best not to yell at my kids. So I'm like, I feel like I'm going to yell at them, and I don't want to yell at them. So I really need you to take over like bedtime routine tonight. And I need to like hide in my closet for 5 seconds from the kids. So like, you don't want to scream like, put the dishes away, Don't you see the kids are driving me nuts? like finding that way of doing it and saying, yes, I do love a clean kitchen. In fact, I'll wash the dishes if you wash these children. Like, I'm okay with that today. Like, let's switch. I'm ready to switch roles today. I will wash the dishes if it means not getting these kids ready for bed. But like having to stay and say, I do recognize that that's something that I love, but right now, I'm feeling that I need a different type of help today.
Yeah, and Joey, you and I were having a conversation the other day, and you mentioned someone was helping you, with the infant, and what were they doing
That
with the
was
towels? That just it like spoke to you. It's like, oh my gosh, they're speaking love
so
to me right now.
my mother-in-law, my husband is from Colorado, and so that's where his parents live. And my mother-in-law came in for an extended trip. My father-in-law came with her. He stayed a couple days, but then she stayed 2 weeks longer to help me, adjust to my two under two life. And so while she was here, obviously she was, helping me with the babies, but she was helping me with stuff around the house, dishes, laundry, and she asked me one day, and it kind of caught me off guard, but she was like, I need you to teach me how you fold your towels. And was just like the nicest thing that anybody could have asked, because it was wonderful that she was doing the laundry. But if she folded the laundry like she would fold her laundry at home, then, like, I mean, my bath towels don't fit in my closet the way that they need to. And so, thanks to TikTok, I spa roll my towels and they actually fit very nicely in the way that I have it organized now. But if you don't fold them that way, then it's a mess. So thank you for doing all the laundry, but if they're folded, like in half or in thirds or whatever, they're not going to fit. And so, like, all the help in the world is wonderful, but then it's not going to work, in the system that you have. So her just learning my spa fold of the towels made just a huge world of difference. And I love my mother-in-law. I'm very grateful that she did that, and I hope she listens. I don't know if I told her enough that I appreciated that.
So simple.
Yeah, in both of
Yeah.
those examples, though, there is, both partners are taking a risk. One is taking the risk to speak up and share the need, and the other partner is taking the risk to approach this with humility and imagining that this is not about them, that this is not a deficit necessarily, that they're not doing something well. They're just, I, I know I can sense that you need something. Let me try to figure that out. And I think that I'm kind of idealistic about this, Erik, but I think that most of the time a need can be shared in a way that invites the person to meet it. Most of the time. It can also be shared as a criticism, and that almost always pushes the person away. But if we'll work really hard at speaking up and phrasing it in a way that invites connection, it invites support, then our partners love us and they want to run toward us and they want to be with us in the partnership of life and home. We just have to share that need in a way that invites them to meet it.
So okay, Matt, this is good. Give me an example. So I walk in my house and I can sense my wife is visibly overwhelmed and frustrated, and I'm not a mind reader, and she might feel that like I should know, right? I should know why she's frustrated. She's been home with the kids, whatever, but I'm not a mind reader. So me walking in and saying, "What's the matter with you?" That's probably not a good idea,
Probably not.
right?
I mean,
So
first they told you yesterday you need to come in with some chocolate, some chubbies, some
I
fried
did.
chicken. You should listen.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we had to record a couple different intros. That was the first intro. It didn't make it in this recording. So let me fill in the backstory. I posed the question at dinner last night to my family. If you're frustrated, and I notice you're frustrated, how would you like me to approach you? My 7-year-old said, just bring her Chubbies and ice cream. Chubbies is fried chicken. My 14-year-old said, just start doing things for me and then ask me what's wrong, and be ready to back off. I'm like, okay, all right, I can do that. And my wife said, just tell me it looks like you had a bad day. Here's some chocolate. So, but it's
Yeah.
that's not true. That's not true. 20 years
You
of
have
marriage.
to prove it.
20 years of marriage. It's not just chocolate.
I believe there's some way you could walk into that home and express to her, either verbally or just physically, by your touch or closeness or something, that says, hey, I see you're struggling and I want to help.
Well, Seleigh, Joey, that's you. That's you're frustrated. You've been home all day. Joey, your husband walks in. You're visibly frustrated. What do you want? Or kind of not you personally, maybe you specifically, but what are your moms telling you? What do you want your husband to say in that moment?
Uh-oh.
Seleigh, what do you want your husband to say in that moment?
I think for sure I want my husband to offer specific help. When so much is going on, I think hearing someone say, "What can I do?" feels more frustrating because you already have so many things swirling around in your head. But I think coming in saying, "Hey, do you want me to take over bath time or dinner?" Like giving me options so that, because sometimes our minds are going and going and going, and sometimes like we need help refocusing on something simple. So say like us remembering, if there's dinner, there's bath, there's homework, all these things need to be done. He's immediately saying, I know what our family needs. I know we have specific tasks. Let me offer to complete a couple versus just saying, what can I do to help? Because there's a million things you can do to help. And when I'm already frustrated and overwhelmed, I can't really stop to think about one. But offering maybe one or two items, I do one, two, or three, feels very helpful because it feels like you're really in tune to what our household needs. You just don't know which one to prioritize.
Like in that moment, what's going to speak to you?
In that moment, which one would be a priority? Because
One
some
of the
days is
moms,
different or the timing may be different.
yeah, one of the moms said, "I'm so sick of making decisions." And
Yeah.
when I read that, it hit me because I've said the same thing, like in business, like when you're a leader and you have businesses and you're making decisions, and like it takes a lot of emotional energy. And I've got a business coach who said you need to take time off just because you're constantly making decisions. And when I read that, it struck me like, oh my gosh, moms are constantly in this executive kind of role of making decisions, and it's exhausting. It's emotionally exhausting.
Yeah,
So
and
here
I
we
have
are
it
saying,
double.
hey, what can I do for you? It's like, oh my God, it's just another decision I need to make. Just do something.
Exactly. And I'm usually double because I'm like basically mom at work as
Yeah.
well. So by the time I'm home, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah. Joey, did we get you back? Kind of, but not really. All right. Matt, what else what else jumped out at you from some of these responses here? And then let's jump into some of the questions that Seleigh and Joey kind of threw out there.
Um, that moms are trying to do a lot all the time. That moms feel a burden of doing a lot all the time. And that probably there's a sense that I should be able to do a lot all the time, or I should, like I should be able to do more. And not, I just want people to recognize life is hard and marriage is hard and family life is hard. Um, we're a partner in it. We're a partner in it. We want it to be better for both of us. And so just leaning into that partnership, and talking with your spouse about needing it to be a real partnership, so that when someone is stronger and someone is weaker, someone has more resources, or someone is more depleted, we can rely on each other to meet these needs together. You know, it's for most of us, we can't have kids on our own. It's not like we can just conjure them up on our own. It requires a partnership, and we got to lean into that partnership to take care of the family and take care of the home.
I feel like I'm binge watching Star Wars Clone Wars, and there's this one episode where the leaders just like disappear. They're disappearing, and I feel like I'm in that episode where our co-hosts are disappearing one by one. So
Speaking
hopefully
of disappearing, you know, I don't know if I told you this story, but one year my wife broke her arm, and
I remember that.
when she was going through like the surgery to repair her arm, all of my kids got a lot better at putting the dishes in the dishwasher and, you know, putting away laundry. Because she couldn't use some aspect of her arm, they had to compensate for that. And that, you know, helped all of us realize that mom's doing some stuff that everybody else could be doing. But nobody thought about that because mom was doing it. Mom had to get disabled for like a month.
So are you suggesting that maybe mom's
break my arm.
break your arm?
You cut your finger, Seleigh. That's good. Come on.
I mean, I'm close.
You
I'm
can't do
halfway.
dishes.
I mean, I have learned that my 4.5-year-old, puts away laundry better than everyone else in the house, including me.
Yeah.
She's actually very good at it. She even
Does
puts
she
socks
enjoy it?
together. She does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
she's a little, she's a perfectionist. You can't have anything out of place in her room. And you can't walk in her room with shoes.
I wonder if as a family we recognize that there are certain members of the family that have different skill sets and they enjoy certain things. Like someone enjoys cooking more than someone else. Someone enjoys doing laundry more than somebody else, or and if we allocate those chores to those individuals, I wonder what that would look like. Or cycle them through. Like no one likes doing laundry, so maybe we like kind of have a schedule here where it kind of goes from me to you or you to me or something along those lines. I don't know.
And get the kids involved. Get the kids. They can do parts of this. Maybe they can't do the whole chore, the whole task, but they can certainly do part of it. I mean, your 4-year-old can match socks. That's in her skill set. In her skill set, and then she can probably put the socks away depending on what drawers they're stored in. And she can learn that task, do it well, and feel a sense of accomplishment because it's over. It doesn't take forever.
And play the long game. I'm going to tell you this. I've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a almost 8-year-old. Play the long game. They're not going to do it great when they're 4. They're not going to do it great when they're 5. They're not going to do it great when they're 6. But as they get older, because they've been learning the skill, when they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they'll be able to be much more effective in helping to do some of those chores. You got to play the long game.
I agree. I think too for us, we're very busy, so that we're actually home for very small amounts of time. I think that ends up being a big thing in our family because my older daughter is a competitive gymnast, so at least 2 nights a week she's at practice until 8 p.m. So that gets really crazy, and then I usually will work late at least a day or so out the week to make up for getting her to gymnastics the other days. So I think for us, a lot of it is timing, and my husband, most days, he's not in until 8, closer to 9 o'clock. So I think it's a energy thing for us, or it's like we talked a lot about the outsourcing, and we sometimes outsource things. Sometimes I outsource my laundry. There's a great service, and some weeks I just know I can't do it all, and I plan ahead and I get someone else to do it, or I don't love the whole like with the grocery ordering. I don't love it because I always think they like don't pick out the right veggies. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm not winning at grocery shopping this week. I'm just gonna take my chance, and whatever bananas I get in this bag, it's just what it's gonna have to be.
Yeah.
Like I think giving like you said, ourselves grace of sometimes you're not gonna do it all, or sometimes someone else is gonna have to do it, and it's gonna be a little bit weird. but go for it because it's worth your sanity and it's really worth your happiness of your whole in your relationship because we're just both admitting that this isn't gonna be the same level, but it's gonna be done, and we're gonna have to. Everybody's gonna have to be okay with that.
Let's talk a little bit about self care because that came up a lot from the responses from some of the moms about self care. And one of the questions that I think you may have asked or Joey may have asked about how do you find equity in self care when one person's self care costs more money or requires more time away from home. Um, so yeah, so someone's idea of self care is could be I just need to go for a walk for 10 minutes, and someone's idea of self care could be like I need to go to the beach for 3 days. Um, is that funny, Matt?
3 days,
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Or
with the second person.
yeah, me too. Me too. So this is an opportunity to say, be sure to register to win the staycation here in New Orleans. That's gonna be some good self care for Mama right there. No decision. The decision's been made. The hotel has been chosen for you.
Yep.
So you
They
don't have to
even
make that
pick your
decision.
room. You just go like you check in and they give you a
You
key.
pick your
and
date. So
you can-
Higgins Hotel
yeah.
and Southern Hotel here in New Orleans are gonna give away a free staycation to mom. So you have till May 17th to register. You can find that on the NewOrleansMom.com webpage. But I think that, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, and Seleigh, I'd love your feedback on this. I don't think equality or equity should be the end goal here. Like I think that's a no, I don't think that's real. I think fairness should be the goal. Like what's fair? Um, that one person's self care may cost more than someone else's, but the goal there is just it's emotional health. So I think what's fair in terms of from
Mhm.
a monetary standpoint, because the question kind of dealt from a money standpoint, is my wife's emotional health is really important to me. Um, and if her self care is more expensive than my self care from a time standpoint or from a dollar standpoint, well, I value that, and I need her. I need her emotionally healthy, and she needs me emotionally healthy likewise. Matt, what are your thoughts on that idea of equality or equity when it comes to self care costs?
Yeah. I, the the outcome is healthy members of the family, healthy family members, and so we are different. We probably have different needs, but we do need to be healthy members of the family. So what kind of self-care activities can we each invest in to be healthy? And maybe there will be discrepancies, between time and money, and just acknowledging that that's probably likely is that we probably won't achieve equality, like we're going to spend the exact same amount of minutes and dollars in our self-care, but we can achieve equity, which is this idea of fairness and similar outcome, which is that we're both recharged, we're both caring for ourselves. So I think that's important, is to have a really good, candid conversation with your spouse around what do you need. I do think, though, that there's a limit to this also, that if one person's self-care is 4 hours, 5 hours on the golf course, and the other person gets 10 minutes of walking time, that's not equitable. And it's okay to call that out and to adjust that. So I'm not saying it has to be equal, but I think it needs to be more in line with fair.
I agree. I think too, figuring out, I guess, kind of like how we talk a lot about seasons. Like my husband is a fisherman; he loves to fish,
Yeah.
but fishing takes a lot of time. You have to drive. It's not really close, and I mean it can be 8 or 9 hours. But of course, prime fishing usually is in a small window of time throughout the year. So he may be like, "Oh, I want to go fishing," or whatever. And I'm happy. I'm excited he can go fishing. Or sometimes he goes fishing with his best friend. Sometimes he goes fishing with brothers. And everyone's so busy. Just like same thing with moms. Having a mom's night out is sometimes difficult because everyone's schedule is crazy. But his fishing depletes me because he's gone for so many hours. So even though I want this so bad for him, I find it hard to like keep myself grounded. And this isn't every week, obviously. Like he's not doing this every week, but sometimes it feels so big when I've had like a crazy week or whatever. But I mean, I know my self care is probably much more expensive than his fishing trip in general. And he usually doesn't give me grief, but I know, like, again, in that moment, same thing, in that sticker shock of looking in our bank account, like, what did you buy or how much did it cost to get your nails done again? Feels surprising to him, but then at the same time, those many hours of fishing sometimes feels overwhelming for me. And like, I think reminding ourselves or like grounding ourselves of like, okay, he doesn't do this all the time, or he does this, a lot for 2 months and then he doesn't do it for 6 months, remembering that. But I think like in the moment finding ourselves, or like I'll tell him, well, you're going to be gone, prep something. Like I'll say, hey, well, if you do these other things, then tomorrow I won't have to do them. So then I'll feel less anxious about the fact that you're going away so long. But even sometimes I'll forget to tell him I need him to do those things because, again, we have to speak up, right?
Yeah.
So I'll forget to say, hey, I need you to do these things before you go fishing because my day will be much simpler if you do those things, because I am going to be without you for 8 or 9 hours on a Saturday. But like you said, it goes back to that communication and talking and being able to say, this isn't punish, or not feeling like I'm not punishing you because you want to go fishing, but I got to find a balance because you are going to be gone so long. And that, like, maybe finding that conversation of, I don't want you to not fish. I don't want you to not go for 8 hours, but there's a lot of tasks that need to happen tomorrow in those 8 hours that we usually would do together. Yeah. Finding a way to make those balances, and that he's not exhausted by the time he gets to go fishing. Like sometimes that feels very stressful for all of us because we have needs, both household but also personal, and we both want them for both of us. But sometimes it's hard to get to both of them.
Yeah.
In doing couples counseling in South Louisiana for so many years, this hunting and fishing thing comes up like every fall. So I've heard these stories a lot. My grandfather was a big hunter and fisher, and I was asking he and my grandmother one day how they made this work, and she said, I know that he really needs it, and it really does help him. And he said, I always come back early. Always come back a little bit early. I thought, man, that's a smart guy right there. And
I love that story.
She would say, he also brought food home for us that we appreciated, and that was, that was a big part of our diet, is what he was able to bring home. That was cool.
We've come up on an hour here, so I want to kind of start bringing this to a close in wrapping up. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I think forever here. So, I'd love to kind of have each of you maybe share some closing thoughts. What are some takeaways? What are if there's one thing that moms here or dads here or kids are listening to, what is it? What is that takeaway?
And I just want to mention, Joey has kind of been in and out of the recording. We haven't just been ignoring her or leaving her off. We really do want to hear what she has to say, but with technology the way that it is, she's been a bit in and out. So I'll start because I don't want to be the last voice. I'd love for Seleigh to have the last word, but just kind of talking about this thing about we all have needs. The needs are going to change. That means we have to speak. We have to say it. We need to say the need directly, but we can say it usually in a softer, sweeter way. And because we love our spouses and we want to be there for them, we can handle almost any kind of request as long as it is wrapped in love. And I think that there's surely a way to do that. I don't always get it right. I know that. I don't always listen well. I don't always speak well, but I know I can if I give it some thought.
Yeah. I was told when we first got married that, they said that each of you should give not 50% to where you meet in the middle, but each of you should give 100%. You should overlap in your serving of each other, because one day And oftentimes, many days, one or both of you are not going to be giving 100%. And if y'all are striving for 100%, there's a really good chance that you're still overlapping each other. So that really spoke to me. But something that, and kind of reading all those responses from the moms, you get a sense there's like tension. There's like this built up, this pent up angst and tension and overwhelmment and frustration. And I'm reading and thinking like, oh, what's the right answer? How do you make everything right? And it struck me that this is something I talked to my staff about, and not reducing this to a business problem, but sometimes in business, you have to ask yourself, is this a problem to be solved or a tension to be managed? And I think in relationships, there's just going to be a lot of tensions that we have to manage. I think it's the way maybe men and women were wired differently, and women are going to think about things that men don't think about. They're going to feel things the way that men, and this is not always the case, obviously, but generally speaking, that might just be a constant tension. That my intention is to serve. My intention is not to make you feel overwhelmed, but I don't feel the way you do. I don't think the way you do, and we just have to figure out how to work through that tension. One thing Matt and I always talk about is that we really value relationships. Relationships are very important, and the whole idea of the podcast is to invest in your relationships. So having these conversations, taking time to understand how each of you react to different situations, I think is so important in investing in our relationships. Seleigh, why don't you share us your thoughts, and then I'm going to go ahead and share one more time how people can register.
Sure. I think 100%. I think Matt gave me a great idea when he said meetings with your whole family is a great idea, because it also makes, I feel like it will make everyone feel a little bit responsible. So I think sometimes, like you said, we women don't always share the burden, and we have to talk about it, but a lot of it's because we keep a lot of it in our head. We don't share it. So just not being afraid to speak up, not feeling bad for needing help or needing a different help that's being offered is like super, super helpful. And like having that open mind, and also, like you said, men having that open mind that, no, I don't think you're horrible or that you don't know, but like you can't read my mind, so you're not going to know. So don't take it personal that I say that what you're offering right now isn't what I need, because you don't know what I need all the time, because you're not inside my head, and not taking that personal, because all of your help is valuable, but sometimes it's different levels of value on different days.
Awesome. Seleigh, thanks for joining us. And Joey, I know you can't hear me right now. You're probably going to hear this in the recording. Thank you for your voice. Even though you weren't here for the last few parts, your voice was in those questions and some of those responses. And to all the moms who took time to respond, we really appreciate that. Remember to follow our podcast, Building Us. You can find us on any of your favorite podcast listening app. You can find us at building-us.com and on Instagram, Building Us Podcast. Follow NewOrleansMom.com. Follow their blog. It's fantastic. If you've got kids and you're looking for things to do in Louisiana, in the city, it's good for that. But also just stories about moms and wives sharing from their heart. It's a great resource. And don't forget to register to win. Staycation, Higgins Hotel and Southern Hotel are each putting up a night for free for the mom who wins. It's going to be available or you'll be able to register through May 17th. Just go to NewOrleansMom.com. You'll see a link there. Or if you're following New Orleans Mom on Facebook, or Building Us on Facebook or Instagram, you will have an opportunity there to find the link as well. So, moms, we love you. Y'all are superheroes. I brought my Wonder Woman Lego keychain for this episode to remind me of how much of superheroes y'all are. Y'all are wonderful. I love my mom. I love my wife.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. So don't forget, invest in your relationships.